live in 5 seconds. Okay, मैं क्यों दूंगा जब भी. Hello. Yep. Hey guys, and welcome back to the live stream on the Fantasypedia Variance podcast. We have today a lot to discuss, and Z, welcome to the stream.
Thanks, Anshuman. Great to be back. And yeah, plenty to discuss. Just before we start, a quick sponsors plug that you're powered by Fantasypedia. And yeah, anything and everything related to FPL, you'll find it at Fantasypedia. Make sure you give them a follow on Twitter for regular updates. And if you fancy regular podcast content, we are here. What's in store, Anshuman?
So we'll be discussing in depth Liverpool assets. What should you buy? Which 2, 3, or single Liverpool assets should you buy? We'll be doing a comparison on them. We'll be discussing Bulls asset. We'll be touching on them. We'll be discussing a couple of free hit drafts, and we have a long Q&A section planned. So everyone who's putting their questions in the chat, will be addressing all of them. In general, we've also picked some curated questions from the Twitter Q&A that we did last, like yesterday or 2 days ago, I think, if I'm right. And we will be picking all of those questions. So make sure you leave your questions in the chat, and when you leave your question, do hit the like button as well, guys. We'll answer it. Don't worry.
Yep.
Okay, so I think we talk about the elephant in the room. I think we should start addressing it, and let's straight dive into the Liverpool assets and their data.
Indeed, yeah. I just want to do a quick audio check.
I think we're good.
It could be a lag. Yep.
On our decks, let us know in the chat if there's clear audio available and everything's right. There's Mustafa Hassan in the chat, so Mustafa, if you can hear us and listen to us, let us know and see us as well. I think we're good. At least on my end, we're good.
Yep. It's fine now. It's fine now. Yep. Let's start. Yeah, plenty of interesting things to cover about Liverpool. Let's get started. What have we got in store first of all, Anshuman? Let's go.
So we'll start with the Liverpool data that we have curated in general we'll start with the 4 players that are the popular picks, and then we'll talk about why the curated data makes sense. So here's the comparison between the top 4 Liverpool assets, the prime Liverpool assets at the moment: Salah, Nunez, Gakpo, and Trent. So the table is very clear. The burning question is which asset to pick between Salah, Darwin, Gakpo in terms of attack. Should we buy Trent or not? And if we have to pick more than one asset, who should it be? So let's start with who should be our first asset. Given the data, I think it should be Nunez because he's fit. I think that if there is someone, it should be either Salah or Nunez, but that slightly depends on your captaincy plan as well. But I think given all the data and how Nunez is playing, he should be a priority. He should be probably in top of the Liverpool attackers in that list. He's getting all of those chances. He's getting those numbers. So I think he's first. Second has to be Salah because he's on penalties and he's nailed on for minutes. Third then would be a question ahead. So what are your thoughts on these players in general? Did you observe anything specific this weekend?
Yeah, I mean it's very interesting, isn't it? Because like you rightly said, Nunez is right at the top when you look at the underlying numbers, and it's not like his underlying data, especially if you look at the XG per 90, it's not like he's marginally better than Salah. He is almost double when you compare the numbers. Uh, However, this is a big thing. We all know that Nunez is not a clinical finisher, and we've seen it not just post World Cup. We've seen it before that as well. It's been a constant problem. Uh, so yes, I do like Darwin Nunez, his underlying data, uh, but there are these question marks that come with him as an asset. Another couple of things that sort of put me off Darwin Nunez a little bit is one, that he's not playing as the central striker anymore. He's playing off the left now. So Scotty Gakpo, who is now actually lining up, you can call it like a false nine or the main striker, but he is the one who's playing central. and Nunez is coming off the left. So that is another. I don't think it should be that big a red flag because in the past we've seen someone like a Sadio Mane play that left wing role and still score goals for Liverpool. A bigger concern for me is the fact now that all the Liverpool attackers they're now back and available. So Diego Jota he's back into the scene now. Firmino is has been making cameo appearances off the bench as well. Diaz could be back soon as well. So the way I look at it, and it's something that I've discussed with a lot of people, including Liverpool fans, is that the right wing spot, you know that Salah will start all the games. That belongs to him clearly. But if you're looking at the striker spot and the left wing spot. You're looking at five attackers competing for two spots, and that makes me think that Darwin Nunez could be a minute race, especially because they play Real Madrid this midweek, and then there's another game. So in the space of 7 to 8 days, they'd be playing three games. So I think it's sort of inevitable that his minutes could be compromised, especially because Klopp has so many options to pick from. So keeping that in mind, and the penalty factor that you just mentioned, I think Salah is the outright Liverpool option to have, despite the fact that his numbers this season, especially post World Cup, have not been as good as Nunez. But he is the main man at Liverpool. He will be involved. He will start. That is the most important thing, and he will take penalties. So yes, I think it's Salah plus any two Liverpool options for me, and we like sort of deep dive into Trent and the other options as well. But I think a Nunez versus Gakpo could be a very 50-50 situation. But I think everyone should have Salah in their team. That is my takeaway.
So I'll just talk more about Salah. So now I want to make a case where Salah isn't necessary, and here's why. Unless you want to, if you are in the Salah captaincy area and you want to captain him, I think it's necessary because you want to captain him and you have that FOMO, then you should probably go there. But in my opinion, Salah isn't necessary, and here's why. If you look at the data, Gakpo is producing better data, Nunez is producing better data. So even in the captaincy standpoint, I think apart from the penalties, both of them look better. Yes, he's on penalties, but Liverpool haven't got one penalty this season. I don't remember when was the last time Liverpool got a penalty, so that's also a factor. That being said, Salah's shot inside the box are on the edge of the box. So when you look at the shot map, most of the shots are not near the 6 yard area or even closer to the goal, but most of them are just inside the 18-yard box, which is slightly a problem to me, I think, because he is on statistical terms, in terms of number of shots inside the box, that he has about 9 shots out of 12 inside the box in the last 6 games, but most of them most of edge of the box or just inside the box, which makes a case that he's not getting close enough to the goal. He is there, he's scoring goals, but he's not very close enough. Yet his XA numbers, assist numbers are higher. This could continue, especially with Gakpo and Nunez playing. We know that there is a certain style of play which is happening where Nunez has been put in as a target man. Trent and Salah are putting in crosses and targeting him. Then there's a follow up by Gakpo. So the current formation and the current tactic that looks like to me is where Salah is more of still of an assister than a goal scorer. He's not hogging chances. Yes, he had X number of shots, but he's not hogging those chances yet. I think it's still Nunez who's at the end of chances, and then followed by Gakpo. So a certain point about Gakpo again, his XG numbers are better, his XA numbers are poor, obviously, but then he's taking more almost similar penalty area touches, and that's also because the ball, when he receives the ball, he's more deeper than Salah. That's a stat about Gakpo. He's receiving the ball deeper than Salah, and that is why between Nunez and Gakpo, I'm more of a Nunez again than Gakpo, because one, Gakpo is not a minute secure. I think he'll be the first one to be subbed off at any point in the game. I think he is the one who will be making way for Firmino or Jota, and then it will be Nunez or Salah. So unless you want to hands down be out of that fear where you want to captain Salah and you have to go there, I think Nunez has to be first priority, and then you can look at, because Gakpo saves you enough money. In that case, you can own both of them, and I think 120 minutes from Gakpo is enough given the output he's producing. Salah hasn't been producing massive output. Given their price, I think Gakpo is matching him at this point. And the third then can be introduced in terms of Trent. For me personally, I think it's a very even case between Salah and Gakpo. I personally, if you're not captaining Salah, I don't see a reason why you should jump and spend so much money unless you have a lot of money. But now that you're stretching your team, so you're buying a 8 million forward, You're buying a 7.5 million defender again, so your squad will get spread. The funds will get spread.
If Mo Salah is listening to this stream right now, and if he listens to your words, he'll weep, he'll cry, because we've seen in the past he sort of knows what FPL is, and he knows that he's heavily captained. And obviously, jokes apart, right? I think to say that he is on par with Hakpo is I just cannot get on
So
board with. I know that, and obviously not in real life terms, even purely in terms of FPL terms, and in this context here, I get where you're coming from, but this is my thing, right?
So
A
again,
certain
it's
player
not about
getting chances.
I'm not talking about the quality of Salah in terms of how good or bad he is. It's just the quality of shots that he's taking. That's an issue to me, and where he's taking them in comparison to Gakpo, who's taking those shots inside the box in better positions. My problem is that the Liverpool team structure is in a way where Salah is still not going central, taking those chances. He's trying. Yes, I'm not denying it. He's cutting inside, but majority of his role is still being the assister to the center forwards they have at this point.
Okay, let's like for an instance, let's hack order, because like I said, I have serious question marks about the minutes, because I think five attackers for two spots is a recipe for disaster when you consider X minutes. But I think for Nunez, his minutes are still more secure than Hakpo. That is like my belief, because he'll be more involved and he offers a bit more apart from the goals. To me, it just purely comes down to this question, where in a particular game, if Salah is getting two chances, I expect him to score at least one, because historically and just in terms of quality, he is a reliable finisher. He has been there, done that, and he keeps doing. Liverpool look up to him whenever they want to make something happen. They look at Salah. With Darwin Nunez, if you told me that Nunez will get three or four chances in a game, and you asked me to bet some money on that, on him finishing it, even one of them, I will not do that. He's not a reliable finisher. So when I'm looking at it on those terms, first thing I'm looking at is minutes, and his minutes are totally that. I think that is why I am looking at Trent also as a very good option. So obviously we'll talk about him. So that is when you talk about purely attackers, I think Salah has the appeal of minutes. He has the penalty factor. Yes, they've not had a lot of penalties in the recent past, but we saw it in the recent double game week with Saka, right? He gets a penalty and suddenly he's at 15, 16 points for that particular game week. So that is I think these are some huge factors, and then like I said, the numbers may not be as appealing, but he has that security, like that security blanket that you need. You get that with Salah, and that also makes him a reliable captaincy option. You can talk about data all day, but would you captain Darwin Nunez if you want to captain a Liverpool player?
But
Would you do that?
so this isn't the case this game week. When you look at it, would you? I mean, there is an equal opportunity that you captain the Arsenal assets and not Salah. So it comes down to the question where you want to, because you're also betting on the fact that they have a game in 28 and they could not. So you're investing money heavily in 2 3 assets, expecting or hoping they have a game in 28. If they don't, you'll have to spread those assets, spread that money again. And even to buy him, some people will have to sell a Kevin De Bruyne or a Bruno, or maybe take a hit as well, maybe a Kane plus Almiron. So it's basically coming at a cost of free transfers and even points. And if the question essentially to me is he worth captaincy one, and if he's not worth captaincy, do I go to other alternatives? And I think yes, I would be more confident. I would bash Salah if I knew Darwin was out. Given the fact that Darwin is not out and he's fit, the only reason I can't really pitch Gakpo so much is because he'll be subbed off at 60, and that's a problem to me. But I still feel, in terms of priority, in terms of getting an attacker from the Liverpool, I think Darwin Nunez should be a priority. If he's declared fit, then should be Salah and then Gakpo.
So if you were to pick, let's say, three Liverpool players out of the four that we're looking at right now, what would be your preference? Like one, two, three. What is your order?
So that brings us to the next question: do you put Trent over any of these? And I would, because Trent gives you clean sheet and attacking potential. Let's talk about that. Before that, let's just get to the Liverpool data as well. I think there's most of it is covered between the three assets. Who do you prefer and link up between the three attackers? What's your ranking for them?
Yeah, so I personally I would not even look at Hakpo first of all. Nunez I may consider, but again I'm not very keen about his X minutes. So I don't like any of those two attackers. I think my pick out of the Liverpool attack is just Salah, and I'm not picking any of them. But like obviously, if you force me to pick one, I think I'll probably go for Nunez out of the two.
Okay, okay, okay. Going ahead. So your ranking would be
Yeah,
Salah, Nunez, and then not considered at all.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, definite. Purely in terms of that Salah and maybe Nunez. That's about it. Yeah,
I'm more in the case
which
where
leaves us with
just
obviously
because,
like
yeah, just because I think the fact Gakpo is Nunez is fit, I think Gakpo's minutes now is very limited, and that is why the only reason I would put him third.
okay. So do you not think that a Jota or a Firmino might actually get a start in one of these two games instead of a Nunez or a Gakpo? Or do you think
For
they're
Gakpo,
completely
I
safe?
think it could be. So it depends on the injury state of Nunez. But I think if he's fit, I think Gakpo is the one who makes way first, and then probably Nunez is still starting. Nunez could get then subbed off, and but I think he'd start both the games.
Yeah, I think we've done a lot of heavy lifting speaking about the Liverpool attackers, but there's a fourth guy out there, and his name is Trent Alexander-Arnold, FPL royalty of the past. Not so much these days. So we before we like sort of obviously there's the underlying data that we're looking at, but the popular FPL is saying that when you're buying a any defender for that matter, it's also important to consider the underlying defensive data or just in general the defensive data of that team. So yeah, let's have a look at the Liverpool defensive underlying data. What are your thoughts, Anshuman? Do you think he's actually worth any sort of investment at all when you look at the data?
So the Liverpool defensive data isn't that great. Let's be very honest. In terms of big chances conceded, they're the second worst team. Shot, although they've not been conceding a lot of shots on target and shots. In general, shots have been very minimal. There are 16, which is a good sign. But good amount of XG conceded, good amount of big chances conceded. So this could come down to game state as we discussed, where they earlier in the apart from the last two games, they've been pushing on very high because they've been a goal down in most of their games, and that is why they've been conceding big chances on the counter. And you know that the certain right side of Liverpool is very weak with Trent over there. But that being said as well, Newcastle should have scored. Everton could have scored. So there is clearly no defensive stability. And when I look at Trent, you probably want to just look at attacking potential rather than a defensive clean sheet. A defensive clean sheet would be a bonus in my opinion and not an additional, like not a for baseline points there. I think it's just baseline points would be 4 with Trent playing 2 games, then the attack, and then maybe as a bonus a clean sheet.
Yeah, yeah. I think I tend to agree with the logic, and especially as someone who owns Trent already, I look at this data and it does not look very good. One thing that I will say uh, is not so we looked at the big chances conceded, and they're actually second, which is really bad. But I think a plus point for them is they've got this guy called Allison, who is absolutely out of this world, and we've seen it in the past seasons as well. We've spoken about this that he helps Liverpool overperform defensively. So I think that could be the case where even though they are not as reliable, Allison could help them maybe. So that is how I am looking at it. That yes, they probably don't keep a clean sheet in both the games, but one would be a bonus. Two would be like absolutely out of this world, but I'm not expecting to. I don't think that's going to happen. But as you rightly pointed out, when you're buying Trent, and he is probably the most attacking fullback in the world, he's that good, and his underlying numbers can put a lot of midfielders to shame. So that is where I am coming from, and I think that is something that makes Trent so appealing. That he's got amazing underlying numbers. And when you buy someone like a Trent at his price, and luckily we are in a season where price is not really a concern because there are a lot of great options available at a lesser price. So buying Trent at that price would not really be a problem. So again, you can spend that sort of money. You're getting great underlying numbers in terms of Trent as a player, in terms of his creative output. So I think there is value out there. So this is and another thing is again I keep going back to expected minutes. I think Trent starts both the games. Maybe he'll get hooked off early in one of the games if Liverpool are obviously on the front foot and they're trying to protect a lead, which again helps because if they end up conceding a goal late, Trent has still kept his clean sheet. So I think for those reasons, I really, really fancy Trent as a Liverpool option to on for this double game week. I'll probably put him second after Salah as my preferred Liverpool asset. Where do you stand on him?
So again, as on the screen, you can see Trent has the highest creation in terms of creativity. He's best in terms of all four the three attacking assets and Trent himself. Even in terms of rotation, as you mentioned, they play Crystal on 26th, a Sunday. I think they play on Saturday Indian time Sunday, and then they play Wolves on a Wednesday, and then United on a Sunday. So I think there is enough turnaround, and I don't think he'll be hooked off or not play. An additional benefit, and that why I think Trent personally should be also a priority, is when you look at this. So we've corrected this data from the Fantasypedia thread. They do this every weekend. The chances conceded thread. We've collected this as from the last week thread. Wolves and Crystal both are weaker on their left flank, and Trent recently has been playing higher up the pitch. So that increases his goal threat and assist threat both by a margin. Additionally, Crystal are the worst team in terms of attack in the last, I think not last 6 games, but since restart. They've in the last 6 games. In the last 6 games, they're the worst attack. They've only created 5 big chances, and they're bottom of the table for attacking stats. Wolves are sixth worst. So the clean sheet potential is also there. It's not like it is not there. Is there is glim chances of it, but it is possible. So and the ceiling then automatically rises for Trent because he plays against the team who are both weaker on his flank where his strength lies. Both of these teams are very bad for attacking data, and I think Liverpool might grind one clean sheet out of it, and I'll be happy out of it. So I think Trent has to be a priority given the fact and given what you'll get out of him this game week.
Yeah, I think those are all valid points. Also, something that I noticed recently and in the very last Liverpool game as well, that you said there could be goal threat on on the plate as well. And Trent was making runs, and he was not just in and around the box. He was actually making runs inside the box. So there were a couple of situations where I think Henderson or Salah, what they played that ball, it could not reach Trent. So I think if that and defenders tend to be clinical, especially fullbacks who are darting inside the box. They have a good shot on them. So if something like that happens and one goal goes in, I think you're set. You're looking at least 10 to 12 points, and anything more, a clean sheet or an extra assist or something would be a bonus. So I think there are a lot of. I think he's probably the most appealing Liverpool player to me. Obviously, when all things
Yeah.
considered, very good appeal of minutes, very good underlying numbers, and as you rightly pointed out, the opponents that he's up against are not that great in terms of attack. They have their weaknesses as well. Also,
They're weaker on his
because
flank, so it just increases
yeah,
his appeal,
yeah,
in my opinion. I think just the fact that he's weak, the opponents are weaker on their flank, is enough a reason. And given his data, and his data is improving, Klopp has changed the tactics around him to give him and Nunez bring out most of him and Nunez together. So I think that, given said, I think you should consider selling one of your defenders and then buying 10 this game week.
yeah. I think I'm on board with that. Quickly, like just to summarize Liverpool, we've discussed their defensive data in depth. We also covered their attackers. Three players, who would be your three picks from Liverpool in your preferred order?
So my three picks in preferred order would be still first be Nunez, second Salah, and third Trent. Now Trent, Salah, Nunez. I think if I had to prioritize, it would be tough. It depends on team structure, but if possible, get one attacker and one defender, in my opinion. But hands down, in terms of point, I think these three are pretty much the same. It depends on. It comes down to the fact how much Trent can get as a clean sheet, or maybe an assist on two. I think Darwin will get chances given he's fit, if he's fit, and then Salah, just because he's on penalties. You have to take that into consideration. He has the most minutes and penalties. Can't really neglect that, but I still feel that he'll not be the top scorer among all of these players.
I think that's a fair shout. Uh, what I am thinking of, obviously, it's not optimal when you look at Liverpool's defensive underlying data. But oh yeah, obviously, I think Salah has to be there. To me, he's going to be one of the top captaincy shouts. And in a season where most of the game weeks we are in a situation where we cannot look at anyone not called Haaland for captaincy. I think this is a great shout if you're looking to go a bit differential, because I expect Bukayo Saka to be the most captain player this game week. So I think Salah, I cannot believe that Salah is now a differential captaincy option. So that itself is sort of music to my ears. So yes, Salah is like right at the top for me. I have Trent already, and we've spoken about him. So Trent, obviously, number two. In terms of the third player, and I've given my reasons why I don't like a Nunez, why I don't like a Gakpo. So I'm planning to bring in, and let's hope it goes well. I'm planning to bring in Robertson as a third Liverpool player, and for the same reasons, where if you get one clean sheet out of it, and Robertson also has been pretty adventurous. He's looking to attack the box every now and then. So these would be my three. It's a bit out of the box, but I think it could pay off. And price should not be a factor because they should be easily affordable if you
But
take
I
the
think
right players.
I would genuinely walk you out of the Liverpool double defense. There's no data to support that they'll even get one clean sheet. It's just speculation, just because of the fact that Crystal are a poor attack, and we're banking maybe they can keep a clean sheet. But again, you need to realize I think it's an away fixture for them. It's not a home fixture for them, I think.
But they
So,
should get two starts. That's what I'm looking at. Two starts is very crucial, and
but
you
I
buy
think
Liverpool
Nunez.
defenders for their offensive points, not for the potential clean sheet. So, and I firmly believe they're way better. I just cannot see two stars for Gakpo. I cannot see more than 140, 150 minutes at best for Darwin Nunez, plus his unreliable finishing, which puts me off. So obviously, fair play to people if they're going there. But also another factor is that there's really good striker options available. Like, who do I take out? Suddenly, Nunez is at a price point where it sort of becomes tricky for me. You've got a lot of people have Nketiah, they've got Haaland, they've got Kane. Some of them have a cheaper striker. So there's a lot of hokey cokey involved. So that is another factor. But yeah, he's not a bad, and especially when he's got those kind of numbers, I think it's hard to argue against him. Uh, Speaking of Darwin Nunez, so I see where the appeal is coming from, and obviously I expect him to be bought in like numbers. He'll be one of the most bought players this week, no doubt about that.
I genuinely don't believe that double defense is an option to even consider from the Liverpool start, because the data doesn't support it at all. The eye test doesn't support it. I I get the fact that you're banking on one clean sheet and maybe an attacking return, but the data and eye test is enough to suggest to go otherwise, in my opinion. Despite, even if 150 minutes for Darwin, I think is enough to match or even outscore Robertson. Hence, I wouldn't even consider it. I mean, that is what I would do. I think I'll go still, if I had to go three Liverpool, I would go two attackers and a Trent. But the follow up question, if you had to just go to Liverpool, which is a popular dilemma, let's just answer it. We've answered three Liverpool. I think for you it is a double. For what is your preferred three? A double defense and an attacker, or two attackers and a defense?
So my preferred three personally is obviously the player that I've just named, Salah, Trent, and Robertson. Because
But
I'm
let's
looking
say
at Trent and
apart from your
Robertson.
team, in
Yeah,
general, let's say for everyone in general, who would be your top three priority?
same. Even if they were not in my team and someone asked me like, who was your top three preferred Liverpool? Because I'm looking at Trent and Robertson not as defenders. They're basically wingers for me, and we've seen this in the past. These are players who've got double-digit attacking returns, despite the fact that they're supposedly defenders. I don't think fullbacks in a clock team, they're not defenders, they're wingers. That is my logic. So I'm buying them, and anyone should buy them not for their potential clean sheet, but potential attacking returns,
But
especially
the
against these
same
kind of
logic can
opponents. Where
be applied to Ruben Neves or a Sarabia or maybe a Kuna, who will get two starts and the same attacking potential. And the attacking data isn't like, I agree, but Robertson hasn't shown any signs of attacking data. Even for Trent, he's not shown signs of attacking data, but just creativity. So my only problem with this solution is that any player given a double game week has two starts and obviously attacking potential. But the fact that there is no underlying data or eye test to even support this is why I want to talk you out of it and probably make you go the other way around.
But does does Ruben Neves bomb forward? He's got probably a long shot under
Yeah,
him. Even though they may not be getting, but your Robertson's constantly higher up the pitch, and Trent is constantly higher up the pitch. So, and again, I keep going back to this. These are historically proven players. So, yes, this season has been a bit shaky for Liverpool, and obviously this is coming from someone like me who's a big Liverpool fan, and God knows how much I'm enjoying enjoying the season. But they are. I cannot look past the fact that these three are the players who've actually done really well. So if I expect Trent to do well, and like you gave the comparison of a Ruben Neves or a Sarabia, they don't have a security blanket where, like we've just discussed, they could get a clean sheet out of it. So if Ruben Neves keeps a clean sheet, he just gets an extra point. In a Trent's case, if they keep a clean sheet, he gets extra 4 points. And whenever Liverpool keep a clean sheet and the game is close, he hogs the BPS. He gets a lot of bonus points. So that is, I think, these little points could work in their favor. But like I said, there are a lot of positives about Nunez purely in terms of data, and I'm a big fan of data. Cannot look past the fact that Nunez's XG per 90 is actually almost twice as good as Salah. So cannot look past. I think it just comes down to the risk appetite, especially in this kind of double game week with a team like Liverpool. So it could go really good or really bad, I think, for either camps. But it's there
Okay,
for the
so
taking,
I
no
mean,
doubt about that.
I'm firmly in the opposite camp. Okay, let's just answer if you had to pick two players for everyone who can afford only two Liverpool pool players. Should you go two Liverpool players or stretch for three? That's one of those questions. The second follow up question is which two?
Yep. So if it were to be restricted to just to Liverpool players, I think I'll probably go for Salah and Trent because of the reasons that we've just discussed. They come with secure X-minus and good underlying data and the penalty factor for Salah as well. But I would still try and get three. So I was in the opposite camp like few weeks back when the news came out that Liverpool could potentially have a double game week. I thought that yeah, maybe two, might just be enough. But they're looking good. Like they're looking better as a unit in the recent weeks. And I think you have to go for it because of how I spoke about, you don't get a lot of opportunities in a season where every man just captains Haaland week after week. So there is not enough opportunities for that upside. I think this presents an opportunity to get that little. Obviously, it's a risk, right? Because if you bring in three Liverpool players and they don't do well, you're stuck with them for the next few weeks, and maybe they don't perform as well. But I think it's a risk you have to take. Just buy the lottery tickets and hope to get lucky. That is my logic. Where do you stand? Do you think two is enough, or you push for three as well?
I think two is enough. Two could be enough given your team structure. I think one defender, one attacker, as I said, Trent plus either Nunez or Trent plus Salah, depending on your captaincy structure. But I think two is enough. Going one, maybe less, because I think people are worried about over committing in Liverpool. But I think even if you don't, even if you commit at least two or maybe even three, it's not a bad strategy. Given the fact, even with these three players, one, you will know before 26 whether they play or not in 28. So that's an advantage. Let's say your team is already overloaded with Fulham players, then you might want to restrict to two, because then the overload in that fixture would be high. But if you don't have Fulham players, like I don't have Fulham players apart from Andreas, I think I'm looking at three players or potentially at least two players. I would recommend at least two players in that situation, because 26 to 28 you can still sell off players. And I think personally in 28, even if you have like about 9 players, max 10, it is enough, because there are not more than 10 players who you would want in general in game week 28. So looking at that perspective, there's not overcommitting. And if it works out in your favor, let's say Fulham lose, which I think is personally possible, if Fulham lose in the FA Cup, then your overload has paid off, because now you have three players playing or two players playing in 28, and now you have two, three moves which you can commit to 27, which earlier you could have not. So I think at least two, go for two. Don't worry about fielding 11 and 28 and then restricting yourself to going one Liverpool player this game. I think commit two, and then I think you can figure out with free transfers up to 28. Unless your team structure absolutely does not support it, then I think go one, and then the obvious FOMO would be Salah, because he'll be the most popular one. I think his, just because he has penalties and nailed on minutes, I think then has to be a recommendation. If you can't afford him, then I think Nunez would be second.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, I think we've done a lot of heavy lifting with regards to Liverpool, but Liverpool are not the only team that have a double. Obviously,
Yeah.
the other team is Arsenal, and we've spoken about them in depth in the weeks leading up to this pod, and I think it's pretty much out there. Right? Before we move on to the other team, like Wolves, obviously are going to be a topic of discussion. I think we've just anything that you would like to talk about Arsenal before we move on to Wolves, Anshuman?
I think pretty much we have about Arsenal. We've talked about everything in terms of Arsenal assets. We've covered most of Arsenal in the recent weeks. It's just that the who three do you pick at this point is a very tricky. And I think Martinelli will start, given what Arteta said in the press conference. He wanted some rest and he wanted to freshen up the squad. I think that's the only reason Martinelli was dropped. So if you still have Martinelli, you can potentially hold, given the fact he'll start at least. But I think still the preferred three is Odegaard, Saka, and Nketiah. If not Odegaard, Saka, and probably White going long term, because Jesus will be back sometime. In fact, not even Odegaard. Something I want to also mention about Odegaard, since we're on the topic, I've been noticing that he's been playing much more deeper than usual in the last 3 games or 4 games, because Zaka has been pushed up more. So Odegaard has lesser shots but more creativity. So the output could be directly less goals as well. But although he does score very low XG goals, and that could not matter to his scoreline, but it's something to notice. If the trend continues, then I think the favorite three or the favorite three could change eventually. But as of now, it's still Odegaard, Saka, and probably Nketiah, or Odegaard, Saka, and White.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
also White,
I
just to
think
touch
that
upon White. he's been doing fabulous. So don't worry about him. I think he'll start, and he's been bombing forward a lot than previously, and he genuinely had good chances last game to even assist or had a certain chance to even score. So don't worry about it.
Yeah, yeah. I think that pretty much covers like Arsenal. We've like discuss them at. I think the best bet would be to just hold on to the players that you've got. But just a word of caution, like your Anshuman has rightly pointed out about Odegaard, he's been playing a bit deeper, but yeah, not much to add. So we'll move on to Wolves now. Anshuman, another team that has a double game week. Uh, I don't think the attackers really warrant any sort of investment, to be honest. Not that appealing, but their defenders could be worth a shout. What do you think?
Then I knew you would bring this question up, and hence I've put up their XG conceded in the last 7 games, match by match. So whenever they play a decent opposition, they've conceded about 1.8 to 1.7 average XG. Everton they conceded 1.7. Again, United a good team 2 XG. Villa who played well 1.8. Manchester City 2.8. Liverpool 1.8. Against the lower half teams they've done well. West Ham, Southampton, Bournemouth who have not been attackingly good, but against teams who can attack, they're not a good defense. This game week they play Fulham away from home, who've been proven to be a good attack. If Mitrovic is back, even a better attack. And Liverpool in general is a very good attack. So I don't think Wolves' assets are investable from a defensive point of view. I don't see clean sheets here. If Mitrovic is out, you can make a case for one clean sheet at max. But that too, I think Fulham are very good at home. I don't see it a clean sheet game. And the second, I don't see goal threat from Wolves defender as well. I don't see any standout Wolves defender. Maybe you can say a bit of a Dawson who can score headers, but there's no standout attacking fullback or a defender who can score goals from Wolves. Neither do they possess a lot of threat in the set plays. So personally, it's a no go for me. I think you would avoid, even if they're cheap. I think it's, if you have them, you play them because it's a blank game week. But I wouldn't buy them just for the sake of it.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a fair thing because I've seen obviously there has been a lot of discussion about Liverpool, but there have been discussions about Wolves defenders as well, and a lot of people sort of going out of their way and considering maybe taking the hit. I, I don't think it's warranted at all. It's with all due respect, they'll be up against Liverpool in the second game, and maybe they pull off, a surprise result or whatever. But on paper, it's not really looking good. So yeah, if you again, so there's a player Bueno obviously who I think a lot of people have uh, in their teams, and even he's not been getting consistent starts recently. So there is one player who's probably out of the window. He may get a start, he may not get a start. We don't know what's coming, but yeah, I think it makes sense not to go out of the way and buy a new, Wolves defender for your team. Long term or short term, I don't think it really makes sense.
Yeah, I think same. And a lot of people are interested in going someone like a Shaw and Bruno out to Salah and Kilman. For those who are looking at Kilman, I would recommend going for a Nottingham Forest defender. And I say that because this game week and game week 28, both they have fixtures as well. I know it's not a double game week. Maybe you can go for an Everton defender as well if you fancy it. They have a double game week. If you already have an Everton defender, I think Nottingham Forest, just because they are cheap in the same price range, they're about 4.2, 4.3. So budget won't be an primary restriction. If you have budget, then you can obviously look at better options. But if your budget is restricted to 4.3, 4.4, apart from Kilman, I think you can look at the Nottingham Forest defenders. They've been decent at home, especially. Their defensive data is in the top 5 in the league in the last 6, 7 games. So they're not the worst defense, and they can prove decent. So at that price, if you're getting two fixtures out of it, I wouldn't mind investing. But that's a backup option. That's not my first priority. But as a backup option over Wolves, I think I would invest there.
Yeah, yeah. That makes yeah, I think that pretty much. So we've discussed obviously Liverpool at length. We sort of covered Arsenal because there's not much to cover, and we've covered Liverpool as well. So I think this major uh, yeah, double game week players sort of have been covered. Uh, any thoughts on Everton players, Anshuman? Because I know that Tarkowski has been on the radar for a lot of people. But if you look at their two fixtures, right, they're playing Villa and they're playing Arsenal, who are like obviously one of the top teams in the league. I don't really see where the points will come from. Do you agree with that, or do you think it could be worth an investment, or should we just focus on Trent as the double game week defender for this week?
So if I had to buy one, obviously Trent. But so there are 2 points. Yes, Tarkowski gets you one a dice defense, which can keep a clean sheet against any team possible. So that's a then genuine possibility. Second is goal threat. But the caveat to that is Arsenal and Villa are in the top six in terms of best teams who have considered least chances from set plays and headers. So the whole argument where Tarkowski has a great goal threat goes out of the picture because these two defenses have not conceded those chances. They're in fact one of the best set plays and headed, like, least number of headed chances conceded and the best set play defenses. So the argument obviously does not pursue. Although yes, it's still a dice team. Tarkowski can score. He's had like one big chance every match and one good shot every match till now, and I wouldn't be surprised if he scores. And you can go there, but solely basing it on goal threat would not be justified this game week because he could not. There is a very big chance that he does not score this game week through an header. I think apart from that, given our team structures and everything, McNeil would not make a place for himself unless you're on free hit. I don't think he makes a place for himself. And Arsenal is an elite defense. I think they play up against Villa in the second match, and it could be tricky given the fact that they have one tough fixture. I wouldn't invest in McNeil just because of the goal threat or assist threat he possesses.
I think that sort of makes sense. So we've covered the major double game week talking points, and obviously it was very Liverpool heavy because they are the team that are sort of
Draw our eyes,
favorites
yeah.
this week. Yeah. If let's talk chips right before we go ahead and take the Q&A. If someone was to play their free hit chip, let's say there's someone who's got just like 5 or 6 players and they're sort of forced to play a free hit this week, what do you think the optimal free hit team for double game week 25 would look like?
So I've curated two drafts. First one of them is this, where I have Edison, Trent, Tarkowski, Dawson with the back four, Saka, Mahrez, Odegaard, Salah in the midfield four, and front three of Nketiah, Haaland, and Darwin. On basis of what I talked and I said, given the fact Darwin is fit, this should be probably enough to go for a free hit. The second draft, I'll bring that up as well. But till that, personally, I would recommend not to free hit. I don't think this is a good game week to free hit unless you have about 9 players missing out, and you have absolutely no other solution but to free hit. I think this is not the game week where you free hit because there will be better opportunities to free hit. The second team is probably with Gakpo, where we have a similar backline. Instead of Darwin plus a midfielder, we have Gakpo plus a forward who's a bench fodder. So there's not much change in the structure and core of the team. Another reason why I don't think free hit is valuable this week, because your midfield most likely will be same to other players' midfield. So you're not gaining much point. Maybe 3 Liverpool is an advantage, but I think with hits, most people will take that advantage as well. If you have two free transfers, you will get 2 Liverpool players. And your core is still Haaland, Nketiah, Odegaard, Saka, and Mahrez, which most likely same for everybody else around you. So again, for those reasons, I don't think free hit is valuable and viable option, but here's a free hit team for in case people who want to go free hit.
Yeah, I think this free team is like probably optimal. That would be my word because it covers all the grounds and it's got a nice balance in there. It's obviously
Yeah.
uh, you've got the, despite what we spoke about, Gakpo, he should at least get one start and maybe a cameo in the other game. The Trent, the Salah. So it's a very well balanced team, and I think this could be the way to go if someone is playing the free this week. I think it's a really nice shout.
Yeah, that's about it. I think this should be it. I have one more thing to bring up, the captaincy, and then we'll dive into the Q&A.
Yeah, indeed.
So
Yep, a major segment. Yep. Go on, Anshuman.
yeah, captaincy, and Salah or Saka is probably the captaincy question. And we know that Z is in probably the Salah camp because he could be less owned and everything. I am looking at Saka as an option because I think he's hogging chances, he's looking good, and Arsenal has shown more attacking potential. Uh, but the only problem could be the defenses they play. So, what do you think in general? Would you like want to talk me out of Saka captaincy, or would you just be okay with it?
Yeah, I mean, I would love it if you join me on the Salah shout. I think a major factor, and like I spoke about, the reason why I don't really fancy Everton players, but they're a Sean Dyche team, and even though I expect Arsenal to score against them, it could be a very tight game. It could be a 1-1, 2-1 sort of a game where also Saka is the most involved Arsenal player. So expect Everton players to just run into him at any given opportunity. So I think that could be a very tricky game for Bukayo Saka. Uh, so honestly, when I'm looking at it, it's a very close call. Even though yes, Saka has better numbers in some of these metrics. So for example, his XA90 is a
Most of
lot
these
better than
metrics.
Salah. Yeah, yeah. But when I'm looking at XG per 90, it's slightly better. So I think that is, and all the reasons and all the laurels I've sang about Salah throughout. I think it's probably going to be a hard move for me where I see on paper it's close and probably Saka edges it, right? He's I can probably call him the better captaincy shout than Salah, but I think my heart is with Salah, and it could go big. Salah is the kind of player who's done really well for most of us in the past, right? We've captained him during that famous game week versus Watford, where he scored, I think, 4 or 5, got like 30 odd points in a single game week. So I don't expect that to happen again, and it will be very difficult for him to replicate that. But if any given point, there is a chance where someone like Salah has 2 games and he's not up against Haaland. Haaland is just 1 game. I think I'm just blindly trusting him with the armband. That is my logic, yes. But practically, it makes sense to go with Saka. I think I'll agree with that.
Yeah, I think the data recommends Saka. The underlying attacking data for the teams recommends Saka. The only maybe down point is the fact that defensively, maybe Everton maybe is better. Everton plus Villa is a worse fixture to play against than Wolves plus Crystal Palace. But I generally feel that the form Arsenal have, no defense is really a big threat to them, and they would like to take probably revenge from Everton at home and want to score against them. So that's also a factor in my head. Penalties again is both. So now it's not a case where one player has penalty and the other doesn't. It's purely a case of who's in form and who's not, and I think that is why I feel that this could be a better matchup.
Yeah, yeah. I think, yeah. I mean, yeah, no doubt that Saka is
Arsenal and
the
Leicester,
better
sorry.
captain.
I mentioned Aston Villa, I just realized Leicester. So, and also Leicester is the third worst defense. Leicester can be opened apart. Everton are still mid-table, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so I think captaincy, even though we're very split, I think we sort of agree that Saka is the better shout.
Yeah.
But if you're feeling like just have that feeling that you want to go a bit different like me, I think you can join me on Salah captaincy
So
this
this is
week.
probably
This
the
this
last
could
time we
be,
would captain Salah in the entire season, or the only time probably this year.
yeah,
But yeah, if you want to, you can. But I think the logical captaincy could be Saka.
definitely. Yeah. So I think that sort of it was brief, but there's not much to add to it. I think that was about the captaincy. Before we take the live Q&A, obviously, we also have questions from Twitter. So
Yeah,
we'll cover them.
we just cover them as well. Before that, we just quickly take everyone through our teams as well and get done with that.
Okay, yeah, we can go ahead and
Yeah.
have a look at a bus. Yeah.
So here's my team. I think I have Kepa, White, Kanji, Saka, De Bruyne, Nketiah, Haaland, Joao Felix, who play this game. Bueno will come in. Andreas will come in. So that's my setup. I think I'm going to probably sell. I have moves, two set of transfer thoughts in the moment. I have De Bruyne, Fernandes, and Nketiah out for a Salah, Odegaard, and Darwin Nunez. So that's a two Liverpool attack formation with a switch from the Arsenal attack to Odegaard. But I don't think that's more viable given all that we've discussed. And it's not my preferred uh, transfer move. The other which I have planned is a Bruno, De Bruyne, and a Shaw out, or a Shaw or a Nakanji out to Mahrez, Salah, and a Trent, which is a preferred move to me.
Yep. Yep. That's Anshuman's team. We'll
Here's
also
your
have a
team.
look at my bus team. Yep. So it's not a standard bus team that you see over here. So it's a 15-man squad that you're looking at. That's because I've not locked in my transfers yet, but these are the potential moves that I'm looking at. So obviously it's my team from last game week, but I'm looking at 2 moves. I've got 2 free transfers in the bank, uh, plenty of money in the bank as well. So I'm looking at taking De Bruyne out first of all, and that obviously means Salah comes into the team. The other move that I'm looking at is, and also there could be a bit of bias because it suits my team structure a bit more. I am not keen on losing Enketia because he has a double game week. There's Nonto as well, who has a fixture. So I don't think it's optimal that I take him out for Nunez. Similarly, in the midfield, I've got the likes of March and Rashford, and I'm keen on keeping them. So I'm looking at taking Trippier out as well. So it's De Bruyne and Trippier out with two free transfers. I get Salah and Robertson in. So that is my move. That will give me a 4-3-3 formation, and I'm gonna captain Salah. I am so sure about it, and I'm very excited about it.
But I genuinely think you shouldn't, because you'll want Trippier back again in 27, or at least on your wild card. So you'll have to pay a lot of money for him.
Newcastle play Man City after the
They play
double
Man City
game.
in 26. In 27, they
So
play.
it could be Shaw as well. So it's not like it has to be Trippier. This was
Yeah.
my first instinct that it has to be Shaw or it has to be. I've been discussing this with a lot of people and I'm hearing both sides. So one side is obviously that, Newcastle are very reliant on Trippier. So even if they're not keeping clean sheets, he's their only source of like creativity. And he's on set pieces, he's on corners and stuff like that. But I think United have also looked very stable to me. Yes, they should have conceded in the recent games, but this is something going on at United, and I think they'll continue to do well. But it honestly, it's a 50-50 right now. So it could be Trippier, it could be Shaw. I'll make the call before the deadline, but I'm pretty certain that this is these are the kind of move that I'll be making, which will allow me to get a Salah and a Robertson in for one defender and obviously De Bruyne. I think De
Okay.
Bruyne will do well this week, but I think he's the only move that sort of allows me to get Salah in. So yeah, sadly he has to uh, leave
And
the
how
team.
much do you have in bank?
I think I still have like 1.6 in the bank, so like plenty of cash available.
So
If
you can't go Trent, Salah, and Darwin for De Bruyne, maybe Shaw and Nonto.
that would mean an extra hit, and Nonto has a fixture, right? So I don't
It's the
really.
same. It's the same three. It's the same three. Like it's the same hit, but I think that could be better in terms of
Yeah,
setting up
so
your team.
right now I'm just using two free transfers. So it's a no hit move. You
Yeah,
you
I'm
can.
saying no Robertson. I'm saying Darwin instead of
Oh
Robertson.
no, no, I'm actually very keen on Robertson. So uh, a lot of the things
Okay.
that we've discussed. So I'm trying to just back it up with action. So it's not just words. I firmly believe that this could come off. It could obviously, keyword. It could go horribly wrong, and I might need a big sofa after the first game, and maybe Nunez has scored twice, and Liverpool don't keep a clean sheet. Robertson does not get any attacking return. He picks up a yellow card. It could go wrong, but I think I'm willing to bet that it should go all right. So I'm comfortable that I think it all comes down to how comfortable you are with your moves. I think I'm comfortable with the idea of owning both Trent and Robertson along with Salah. So I think I'm going to go there.
Okay. 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 We'll move to the Twitter section in terms of questions. We'll take up one question and answer it, and we'll let you know our thoughts for people who have sent us question on Twitter.
Yep.
Yep. Let's jump into it. We have the questions here. So you want me to read out the questions?
Yep. We will do that. I'm just trying to find the.
Okay, so I have the question, so I can read it out easier to you.
Yep. Let's get, even I've found them. Let's get started. So there's a lot. So we've got like 21 questions that we found on Twitter, and the idea was that we'll cover some of them, but we just want to go for all of them. Something that has been covered already, we'll just keep it short. If we find a question that has not been covered already, we'll sort of answer that in detail.
Yep.
So, yep, let's get started. I'll start with the first question, Anshuman.
Yeah, go
We
ahead.
have we have a question from badwolf_blue, and the question is, which cheaper Liverpool defender would you go for? That is the first question. Also, Darwin or Gakpo as the third Liverpool asset, as someone who's looking to go for Salah and a Liverpool defender. So this is about the cheap Liverpool defender. So I think that's probably Joe Gomez right now because we've discussed Trent and Robertson, but they're not exactly cheap. Even Van Dijk is not like really cheap. Do you think Gomez could be a worthy shot at his price, Anshuman?
No, no, I don't think. Given the fact, maybe Van Dijk, you make a case for Van Dijk, but
Yeah,
not
yeah,
for Gomez.
yeah, yeah. I think I tend to agree. Uh, and Darwin versus Hackpo. I think Nunez is the pick out of the two.
Yeah. I think I'll
Okay,
take up the
next
second question
question we have. Yeah, go ahead.
from Sar. I think we have the second question from Sar. What do you reckon will be the average number of players across the field, and how many hits for doublers would be advisable? I think most people will be able to easily field 11 players this game week. That shouldn't be a problem for most of us. And the average hit, as what I can see in the community and people, I think -4 would be a very common sighting this game week. I think more than -4 is not advisable. A -8 would be advisable only if you're changing your team structure a lot. So if you have two free transfers and you're taking a -8, that means a four transfer move, and you're changing your structure completely, then I think it's justified. But otherwise, if you're just making it to get double game week players, I think it's not that justified. You can stick with the -4. I think with the -4 you can do well this game week.
Yeah, yeah. Also, I think this game week would be a lot about not the players you bring in, but the players you take out. Because if you're taking a -8, you're potentially taking out three players that have been a key part of your team. So, and if it's a minus, for example, those who have two free transfers, then looking at a -8, they're taking four players out. So these are probably players who've done well for you for a long time. So I think it's important to ask yourself that is it worth taking them out of your team altogether, let alone for -8. So yeah, I think that could be it. In terms of average number of players, I think it could be about 9 or 10. What do you reckon,
I
Anshuman?
think
I
10,
don't think
11. I don't think it's going to be 9, 10, 11. I think people are well prepared for this. I think.
all right. Yeah. We'll move on to the next question. Let's
I have it up for me.
Yeah,
I
you
think
can
it's
take it
from
up. Yeah.
FPL Ignite. Recommend a budget forward for double game week 25. A budget forward for double game week 25. I think Kuna from Bulls is a budget defender who has a double game week in 25, and that could be your outlet. But apart from that, Enketia suits the best if you don't want to go. If that's the pricing you can afford, Enketia would be priority. Otherwise, only
I
the cheaper one, the cheaper option than Enketia is I think Kuna who has a double game week. Apart from that, nobody really pops up in my mind.
yeah. I think I tend to agree pretty much. The next one is about it's a midfield question. So it's Huang An, and he is asking a midfield slot with 7.3 million for the next 4 game weeks and a forward below 5.8. So I think you've answered the second bit about Kuna. The first one, who would be your suggested midfielder for less than 7.3 million?
So I think I'm not sure if what price Madison is. So you can look at Madison or Barnes, both who are around the same 7 million price point. They could be an option. If you can't afford them, I think the only other option which looks decent to me is Bowen in midfield. And another addition to Kuna, I don't think Kuna is the best option. So if you can avoid the forward transfer this week and get someone next week, I think Evan Ferguson from Brighton is the best option at that price.
Yeah, yeah, I think I tend to agree. Next question is from Crisardino, and he is asking, is it wise to sell Trippier, Shaw, or Rashford if I don't mind loss in player values and getting them back on wildcard in 27? I think this goes back to something that we just discussed, that this game week would be a lot about the players that you take out. But if you have a wildcard, I think it's very team specific. If you don't mind the loss in team value, and I think we spoke about how Trippier could be he's up against Man City next week. So in those scenarios where you're taking him out this week, you might not need him against Man City, and you're prepared to play a wild card in 27. I think it could be fine. It's not the worst move in the world. Do you are we on the same page on that, Anshuman, or do you think you should keep hold of these players regardless of the wild card situation?
I think Shaw could be sent out. I think Shaw is not a priority hold. There's not huge value loss. Trippier is a huge value loss. I don't think you should sell him. I think if unless it's extremely necessary, I think it's not necessary to sell him this game week. Bench him. Same with Rashford. If you don't have enough value attached to
Yeah,
Rashford, then fine. But I think Trippier, most of us have huge value attached. So if you have huge value attached, don't sell him, because even while building wildcard, you need to realize that every point 0.5, point 0.4 is required now because you'll be bench boosting later on in the season, and so you will have to have a deeper squad and a deeper bench, and those small values will help you get your desired team. So don't waste value wherever possible. Save it.
true, true. I think it's definitely a factor. Next question is from Gunnar Sovan. He is saying that he has got two free transfers and he's planning KDB and Bruno out to Salah and Gakpo. Good move.
I think good move given, but only minutes warning. I think remember that Gakpo won't. I don't expect him to play more than 140, 130 at the best. So yeah, that's the only issue unless Nunez is not fit again. So yeah, that could be a problem. But again, good two moves. I think getting De Bruyne out is not a bad move this game week, even for a Mahrez as a sideways because Mahrez has got the upside. De Bruyne doesn't look like the form he used to had earlier, and Mahrez is in the form of his life, not his life, but in the form of the season. So fair enough.
Would you take De Bruyne out for Mahrez? No, like especially when Liverpool players are available. I think that's a bad. Like
No,
I,
no,
as
not
someone
just as a
who
free,
actually
but let's
owns,
say if you're
yeah,
restructuring your team, and
mhm.
instead of Gakpo, you wanted like in my case, I'm going to Liverpool and one Mahrez. So essentially, it's still De Bruyne to Mahrez, but I don't mind it because I see it as a long term thing, and I think Mahrez is the explosivity Mahrez is getting you at this point, even though you might have missed the train. I think it's decent.
In fact, I'm thinking De Bruyne could be more secure because Foden had a start the other day. So I think he could now eat into his minutes. So as someone who's looking to take De Bruyne out, and I'm keeping Mahrez for now because he's at that price point where it's fine. I am not very comfortable about his minutes going forward, but this is something that we can cover in detail in the future pods. But yeah, in this particular move, with regards to the question, I think yeah, it's not a bad move at all. We'll move on to the next question. There is FPL underscore just, and he's asking, would you sell Kane and Aki to Nunez and Trent for a hit?
Kenan
I
Ake
think
for
so.
Nunez to Trent for a hit. Now, this poses a tough question. If Nunez is past fit, I would do it. Given the fact it's a double game week, you're getting double game week players, and Ake, I don't know if he starts or not. So yeah, I would do it.
Yeah. I think there are some audio issues here. You can go ahead with the questions for now, Anshuman. Let's just take them quickly.
Okay, so the next question is Gakpo or Salah. If I could, there's a very detailed question up ahead. If I go get Gakpo, then I could go Trent, but with Salah, I can only get Robertson. So personally, it comes down to captaincy, like I explained earlier in the video, like we earlier talked in the video. If you're not captaining Salah, then I think Gakpo plus Trent is a good combination. But if you want to captain Salah, I think prioritize Salah then. Yeah. The next question is from Shreyan. He says, "Is Mahrez still a good option with the CL back?" So again, we discuss he's a minute risk. Yes, I agree with it, and the train might be already it might have already departed the station. Agreed, but if you have him hold again, I am looking to buying him this game week. I'm not very confident, but again, he's not a hands down buy. If you have him, although he's still a hands down hold. The next question is from El Sheriff. Bringing Arnold or Darwin with a -4 hit. If Darwin is fit for a Game Week 25, I think yes, I would do it.
Some more
Yeah,
questions out there too. Yeah.
yeah, I'll just read them. There's some issue with Z's, I think, audio. Anyways, there's some question by Sachin. Sachin's question is: Get Salah at any cost or Trent Gakpo Nunez without sacrificing your team structure? I think Trent Gakpo Nunez or Trent plus Nunez could be a better option, especially if you're not captaining Salah. So keep team structure in mind, but also keep captaincy in mind. So if your Salah is your preferred captain, go there. I think the Nighthawk FPL has sent in a question saying if you have to decide between one Robertson and Gakpo for 25, where would you guys lean towards? I think we are split over here. Z prominently and very confidently feels Robertson is a better player and he would deliver this gimmick. I personally don't think you should even consider the double defense. Trent is enough because he's shown attacking potential. I think Gakpo would be second for me. Karan has sent in a question: Is the community getting too excited about Liverpool? One or two assets max is fine. Have they shown that much to take that bigger risk, considering they won't play in 28? As I explained, so we discussed this earlier in a section in the video, in the live stream. But again, I think committing two is fine. Three might be an overstretch, but depends on your team structure and depends how many full players you have. But at least one and maybe move to a two is good. Your audio still out?
Move on with the. I'm still sort of. I think there's a bit of lag here, so yeah, you can just go ahead and complete the section. Take all the questions.
So yeah, we have FPL Rushil. Thoughts on McNeil? We've discussed this earlier in the section. I think he doesn't make it to the 11 this game week. With the conversation so heavy on Liverpool assets, is there an opportunity that is being missed on potential Wolves or differential Arsenal options, such as Neves or Saliba? Saliba, I think three Arsenals are necessary at this point, so you don't miss out on that. Again, Neves could be an option, maybe the Wolves attack, but they have their seventh, sixth best for worst for attacking number. So, is there really an opportunity given their fixtures? I don't really think so. Maybe Fulham, but I'm not very confident on that. So it would be too much of a punt to take on in terms of attacking risk. And if you have to take that much punt, you probably might go for a team who's been registering attacking numbers irrespective of their performances, which is Liverpool. Pep Cymax has sent free hit recommended this week. I have 5 starters blanking with and a rubbish bench. Even if you have a rubbish bench, if they play, that's fine. If they are completely non-playable players, then you might consider free hit. But again, this is not the best game week to free hit. If Darwin doesn't recover in time for both 25 matches, who's the best alternative Liverpool attacker to go besides Salah? I think Gakpo and Tarkowski. We've discussed Tarkowski is not worth the hit. I think we've discussed this extensively. You can consider him, but he's not worth the hit, as a lot of people have asked. I think we are mostly done with the questions. We have one section of the questions left. Let me just try to bring that up. Yeah, we have that question section up here.
They've got like 4 more questions, I guess, just Anshuman.
Yeah.
Try to
I'm just
quickly
trying
wrap
to
them up.
bring them up on my end. But I think we
Yeah.
have thoughts on wildcard by FPL Neptune. So I personally feel wildcard is better if you play it after you have clarity on the double and blank gaming going ahead. So beyond 26 is a decent time. Beyond 29 is probably the best time. So yeah. The next question is Salah plus Trent plus who is it Gakpo? It's probably Nunez given the stats. It is not necessary Salah plus Trent plus to go for the third Liverpool, but if you had to go, it's probably Nunez. Yep, I think we have Z. Can you cover the last questions?
Yep. So have we covered questions from FPL Rover and Chris? So I'll just cover those two. So uh,
Yeah.
Krish_7 is asking that with something that's been sort of covered already, but he's asking that considering a possible blank in 28, bad defense and rotation amongst the forwards, what is the ideal number of Liverpool assets to have long term? And is selling Kane worth? So I think if you sell Kane for Darwin, it's fine because of the upside that he's offering immediately. So I think that could be a good move. Yes, Liverpool do have issues, but I don't think that should stop you from bringing them in because they've got 2 good fixtures this week, and you're just playing the fixtures. And Liverpool are still a good side; they can score goals. They probably will score goals. I think they're worth the investment. Uh, there's a question from FPL Rover, and he is asking, how do you feel about hits that aren't blankers to doublers? And he's giving certain examples, like for example, someone like a Patterson. Would you take him out for a Tarkowski for a hit, or a KDB to Salah, or an 8 million mid to a Gakpo or Saka? So I think this pretty much again is very much player dependent. If you're taking a KDB out to Salah, even for a hit, if you're captaining him, I think it's fine. So if you're getting a Salah or a Saka in for a hit, but as long as you're captaining them, it's okay. Otherwise, if it's for a hit and it's a KDB to Saka or a Salah, then I think I'll probably think about it if you're not captaining them. And someone like a Patterson to Tarkowski for a -4, I don't think is worth it unless it's someone like Trent who offers upside. But yeah,
Yeah,
see again, if you're not able to field a playing 11 and you then get a Tarkowski, I still think it's okay because Patterson, I don't think he'll start even one game. So you're looking at someone who's maybe just going to play 10, 20 odd minutes at best for a Tarkowski. So yeah, if you're not able to field the 11, I may consider Tarkowski, but it's not optimal. That is my thought.
and I think it's justified in
And
the
a
midfield
question
because you
about
get, yeah. Just an addition there, Z.
yeah,
I think it's justified if you get it in
yeah,
midfield because you are getting an extra fixture, so that justifies it, and it could be an explosive transfer as well. In the defense, I really don't like it unless it's Trent because the upside, in terms, even if you get an extra clean sheet, is probably less. So, wouldn't really go there unless it's a probably a guaranteed clean sheet or some attacking potential there.
that's right. This is a very specific question about wild card like for some
I think we
again.
discussed.
I think
We covered that. I think yeah.
it's been covered.
If,
Okay, all
yeah,
right,
I
all
think we
right.
covered
So
everything.
that's pretty much about it in that
Yeah,
case.
that's
Yeah,
about
we've
it.
covered the again for our viewers. Sorry about the lag. There's been a bit of an issue towards the end where we are probably not on the same page because of 20-30 seconds lag. But we've covered all the Twitter Q&A and go
Just
ahead
will
and
take up
take the
some
live
questions which are
question.
there in the chat.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'll quickly take it. We had Mustafa Hassan's questions. Thoughts on Gakpo and Gomez. We've discussed that in depth. Rashford to Mahrez slash Gakpo. I don't think I would do it. And Mings to Gomez is also something I wouldn't do it. I think Mings plays this game week, so you hold him. Next, we have discussed free hit, and Zeal has sent in a question saying Kevin De Bruyne, Shaw, Kane to Salah, Trent, Darwin for a -4. I would do it. Kane is a risky sell, I agree, but I would do it because I'm getting extra game fixtures out of them. And what to do with Patterson? If you have him, if you can sell him and upgrade him to someone. Otherwise, just bench him this game week because unfortunately he will not play. So, and probably if you can sell him for a double game week player this week, it's a decent investment because you get 2 games now and 1 game in 28, especially for an Everton defender. There's another question: should I take out Tony out for an Nketiah? Yes, you should. If you don't have Nketiah now, maybe you can just, if you can field an 11 with Tony on the bench, probably do that as a preference because Tony has a double. Nketiah could be a risk eventually, so that's up to you. But get a third Arsenal player if that's possible. And last 2 questions, we have Mitrovic to Watkins for a -4 if Mitrovic is out. I would do it this game week. And how would you get money for Trent? Willing to sell Kane, be worth it long term? Yes, I think because Kane blanks, so I think justified you're getting one extra game this week, and Kane also has a tough game this week, so it is probably more or less justified.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anything different? I think we covered most of this in the podcast, but so I just repeated the summary of the podcast essentially in those questions. We've discussed all of this in depth in the podcast.
Yeah. So if you've joined in late, it's always a good idea to go back and revisit the stream. All of this and more has been covered. So yeah, there's a lot of it's been an eventful pod. I would say there's a lot of interesting debates and talking points that we are sure will help you make your decisions, not just for this game week, but the game weeks beyond as well. Any last words, Anshuman, before we wrap this?
No, I think a lot will change. Also, this pod is coming out before the Liverpool